Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Millennial Project. We are here today at the RAND Corporation in Santa Monica with Mr. Bill Welser, who has done a ton of research into artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is obviously a big topic out there in the media right now. Some people are very excited about it, others are uneasy. So as I sit here with Bill today, my goal is to try to sort of decode AI a little bit and try to get a better understanding of how AI will affect our day-to-day lives in the next 10 to 20 years. So with all that in mind, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what got you interested in artificial intelligence here at RAND?
Sure. So thanks for the introduction. I'm Bill Welser. I direct RAND's Engineering and Applied Sciences Department. I'm also a senior researcher here at RAND. And I look mostly at things in the emerging technology space, so the future technology space, which is what got me into artificial intelligence. Typically with these types of topics, my goal is to make them more accessible to people. Right now, artificial intelligence is one of those things that a lot of people hear about, but very few people truly understand even some of the basics. So that's always my first step, and we're pretty early on in thinking about policy as it relates to AI here at RAND.
I'm sure you get this question all the time. When people think about AI, I think what drives a lot of the uneasiness that they might feel is this kind of like very ingrained cultural idea that we're going to create a computer that's going to take over the world or something like that, you know? And so I was curious, I know that there was this letter written by some kind of big tech leaders and some big scientific minds that maybe cautioned some of our AI research. And I was curious where that letter came from and how you think we can preempt some of these more dangerous pitfalls, let's say, of continuing AI research.
Right. So you're very correct in kind of referencing this idea that Hollywood and kind of the movie industry, but not just them, everybody, when you talk about AI, you're really jumping to like the most extreme case, right? The humanoid robot that, you know, kind of lives and works with us and is, you know, fully sentient. And, you know, the span of AI is much greater than that. You know, it's all the way from very simplistic kind of rote calculations that you automate, but in a very much, you know, kind of back office of a firm or something like that, all the way to this kind of sentient robot that requires like whole brain emulation, right? So the replication of our brains, but in a computer kind of instance. The you know, more extreme end of this really gathered, and the development in those spaces really gathered the attention of some of our, you know, most brilliant minds in the world. People like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates, and they got together and wrote this open letter about the risks of AI. And people should go check it out. I'm not going to summarize it right now. But the important part about it was, one, these people who are really huge thought leaders pushing out kind of caution. I think that was really important. The second piece was that by making it public, it actually fed back into some of these computer science departments and other kind of tech firms where they were really iterating on these technologies without thinking about things like ethics and safety and security and things that maybe the common person wants considered when you're developing something that is can maybe think for itself to some degree. So I really think it opened the conversation, this letter. And, you know, we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, it's worth mentioning that they didn't just write a letter like Elon Musk started OpenAI, which is an entity up in the Bay Area that's really trying to open source AI development while kind of gathering as many people as possible kind of into the mix in the development space.
So it sounds like you're saying this was kind of like just, hey, this is what to watch out for when you're developing this stuff.
I mean, I think it was just a warning shot across the bow, right? Like, so, you know, this is one of those technology areas where if left unattended, it's not that you need to regulate it. I don't think that at all. And from the standpoint of I can't list to you the regulations we need to have in place. But if left unattended or left without behavioral norms, you could really have it kind of run out of control very quickly. One of the most concerning things about very detailed AI systems is that even the designers cannot forensically look back into the system and tell you exactly why it came out with a particular outcome. Even if the outcome was in the space they're hoping for and that they had designed for, they can't trace back the decision pathway, if you will,
Oh, wow,
in
that's
a very
fascinating.
simplistic sense. So that's worrisome, right? So
We don't even know why it maybe went wrong
Right.
sometimes.
right, and a lot of that has to do with we're trying to emulate something that we don't fully understand in and that thing is the human brain. We don't necessarily know why humans make the decisions that they make. We have a lot of heuristics and rules of thumb and whatnot. We have some science, but we don't know the full in and out.
So it sounds like that's sort of the cautionary side of the AI argument. What is the kind of more optimistic side? Where can AI come into our lives in a positive way in the next, let's say, like 10, 20, 30 years?
Right. There was a lot of data that was being just kind of dropped on the floor in a way. That's kind of a phrase that people use, like something that's just been discarded and you can't use it. And it was because we didn't have enough time. So AI really allows you to speed up a lot of these calculations. It allows you to speed up the process by which you take fact, consume it, perform calculations on it, and then help with some amount of decision making or task completion. So I think that the idea of automation for the history of humans has been something that we've really tended toward, right? And for various reasons. One, to be able to do more. Two, to give us more free time. Three, maybe to make things safer. Those sorts of arguments exist and will continue to exist. The promise of AI really revolves around those sorts of things. And we just need to be cognizant that there are risks, right? That there are some downside risks in particular that we should be paying attention to from the beginning.
So I have heard people say that this might be able to be utilized to make our judicial system, let's say, like a little bit less biased, or somehow help with the process of curing disease. Are these areas that AI can come into in a positive way, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, there was an article, I guess maybe it was last week, a series of articles talking about how an artificial agent was more accurately diagnosing particular conditions. Because they were taking in all the data, right? They didn't have the bias of having, spoken with the patient. They didn't have the bias of, particular school that the doctor was trained at. And they were, actually coming out with more accurate outcomes. But, that can't be taken by itself. Just a diagnosis is one aspect. You want to make, the doctors still play a huge role in kind of medical care delivery in our society. And this is one of the things, and it gets to something that comes up a lot, which is, can AI systems, are we at risk of them replacing us completely, right? Like, will they take all our jobs away and are our jobs,
Right.
a thing of the past? And the fact is right now, I can say two things. So one, for the history of humans and in terms of the recorded history of humans, as we've thought about specialization and tasks and employment, there's been concern that as we come up with new innovations, that's going to get rid of huge collections of jobs. And oftentimes that's not borne out to the extreme. It's not borne out in the worst way possible. Yes, some jobs go away, but other jobs kind of fill into the space. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that entire occupations, and the medical doctor is a great example, are not going to just go away, right? Because there are things that we can't automate a device or a computer to do. Instead, certain tasks that they're burdened with right now or that they're asked to do within a particular profession may go away, right? They may be automated. Well, if a doctor has 5% more free time when they're on the clock, right? That's probably a good thing. So AI in a supplemental standpoint, I think are very, very promising. There are other professions that people talk about, taxi drivers and truck drivers, and we've already seen a lot of automation in factory work. Yes, a lot of those professions will change. How they're going to change, I don't know. That's up to the market forces. But they will definitely change as a result of automation. One kind of rule of thumb that we've thought about here is the susceptibility of a a particular profession to automation really has to do with two things. So one is like the environment that profession works in. So like how chaotic it is. And as there's less chaos, then you have more chance of automation. More chaos, it's really hard to automate. And then the timeline by which they have to make decisions. So if you have a longer timeline, then it's easier to automate.
Oh, no
if you have a
way.
shorter timeline to make decisions, then it's harder to automate, right?
So you don't think about that because you think of computers as being super fast, but
Right.
in some ways they need more time.
Well, what I'm saying is the tasks that we do, if there's a long timeline, it's easier for us to automate it,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Because we can say, hey, the reaction time, so it's all about
Oh,
reaction
right, okay.
time, not
Got it.
task time, right? So the reaction time, if it's long, then we have time to automate. We have time to think through like what are all the different steps. So, an example of kind of low chaos, short or long reaction time is and I'm sorry for all the accountants, but like accounting, like a lot of accounting, like
So that's like the optimal profession for AI at this.
well, I don't know
example.
about optimal, but
Okay, sorry.
it's in that space, right? Like tasks where, you can prepare for taxes for months, right? So tax preparation, like you can prepare for months. Like the code is well known in terms of the tax code. So you can automate that, right? There's a very little chaos because everything's well known and you have lots of time to prepare. Something where it's a bit harder is where you get like constant surprise. So like kindergarten teacher, right? Like high level of chaos, always being surprised, and you have to think right away, right? Because you've got 30 kids that you're responsible for. Navy SEALs, right? High level of chaos, also having to think right away. So, thinking about professions in that way, I think can help ease some concerns about just wholesale automation, but also help, just inform people about maybe where the next automation, push will be.
Do you mind telling us if you know kind of where we're interacting with AI on a daily basis already?
Yeah, so in the banking system, there's a lot of space there. There's a lot of AI with our markets,
Okay.
with our trading markets, and that's either scary or reassuring. I'm not sure, but anyway, it exists. Healthcare, we're seeing it tried out in a lot of different spaces for prediction of conditions, and that's fantastic. Lifestyle, everything from the auto-populate in your web browser. That is a light style of artificial intelligence that is kind of collected all of your history, and it's then helping you it's realizing what you're likely to fill in. That's something that actually contributes to this filter bubble effect that lots of people are talking about, but that's maybe another discussion. It's actually live right now in our criminal justice system.
Oh, no way. Okay.
And so you can look up this organization, Publica, did a great series of investigative journalism in April and May of last year, looking at a particular approach toward predicting recidivism, and thus basing using those predictions to base the sentencing. So judges were using this, and they found that the application was actually biased.
Oh, no.
And I encourage people to read about that to learn more about it. But those are the sorts of things where it wouldn't be natural to think right now, oh, is there an artificial agent involved here? When in fact, yeah, it's kind of, they're all over the place.
I had no idea. Are these artificial intelligence systems also kind of involved in like your Facebook news feed or like a Tinder swipe? That's all AI?
It's all the data is being collected and treated, refined, and then spit back to you, right? And so AI is already in the wild. And in the wild in a lot of places that we may not appreciate. So if you or I go and apply for a loan, there is a loan officer that we're dealing with, but there are a set of algorithms oftentimes behind those loan officers, right, actually calculating whether or not you or I should get that loan. if we're declined, we say, wait, what happened, right? Again, I talked before about being able to forensically look back. Well, they could say, well, you need a higher credit score, or, oh, it'd be great if you had more leverage or less leverage or whatever. They don't actually know at this point because so much has been offloaded to the algorithms. That's a very simple case. It will become more complicated and more complex going forward, and it'll be helpful for people if they are constantly thinking, where is it an automated decision-making process that's contributing to this versus a person that's, either in the loop or is making the decision. It'll be helpful for you to be able to then decide, how you go about either contesting a decision or, kind of consuming it and then taking some action based on it or whatnot. We've joked around here that, again, I'm not going to list any regulations, but from a policy standpoint, just generally, like, maybe things should be listed with AI inside kind of thing, right? Yeah, right. Like to tell you that AI is, actually actively in the product that you're consuming.
Well, that would make sense. I think it would maybe make people comfortable maybe more comfortable with the systems if they knew it was there.
Yeah.
So do you have any other things that you'd like to say, or would you like to tell people how they can get in contact with you or your work?
Yeah, so generally, I'll take the last thing first. I mean, people are welcome and should go to, our website, rand.org. RAND is known in most circles as this very old think tank that, initially did a lot of defense work. But we are totally comprehensive now across the policy space. We do work in health, education, labor, environment, with energy. If you can think about it in the policy spectrum, we're doing something on it. And we have 800 research staff.
Wow.
That are salaried employees across kind of the academic disciplines. So it's a really rich place from a standpoint of the perspectives and also the standpoint of the work that we're doing. In terms of the, maybe a last thing that we haven't really touched on, we touched a little bit on ethics, we touched a little bit on safety and whatnot. Something that we didn't talk so much about was just bias. And I think that as we see more things automated, there's a bigger risk for bias to be injected, not necessarily intentionally. Reserve the right to accuse someone of putting it intentionally, right, at some point, right, if the proof is there. But I think oftentimes it's not intentionally. It's the fact that, if I'm designing a system, I'm going to design it using my assumptions, my perspective on the world, how I think about technology. It might not be how you think about it. It might not be how someone who grew up in a completely different environment than I did or a completely different country than I did. And the way that our world has become more global, we really need to think about the applicability of these systems across many different cultures, across many different countries and scenarios, and make sure that we don't, unintentionally have bias that is in there that is undetected and then leads to bad outcomes. So people should be aware and be thinking about, one, is AI involved? And then two, if it is, does that sound right? I have this credit score, I have this much money in the bank, I have this, and I got denied. Does that sound right? Right? Is there something else that's being fed into that system? Let me challenge that. Let me think about that, right?
I think that's really important because I think there is kind of a conception, even though a lot of us don't know a ton about AI, that, a computer is not biased in any way.
That's right.
If you feed in like math, you're going to get out an unbiased result.
That's
right.
Obviously
way oversimplification of what's going on, I'm sure, but it sounds to me like you're saying that potentially if the data going in might be a little bit biased, the learning as a result of it can come out a little bit biased as well.
Absolutely. And it could be undetectable for quite some time just because it's so minute, right? And then it just builds on itself over time. You're absolutely right. I mean, anything that comes out of a computer, we have grown up thinking, and it's automation bias, right? We've grown up thinking, came out of a computer, must be precise, right? That must be right. Like usually the phrase I hear is, someone smarter than me programmed this, right? And we just need to remember that it's okay to question every once in a while, kind of the outcome of our technology.
Cool. Well, I guess let's ask you one more time. Did we leave anything out? Should we cover anything, or is that pretty good for you?
I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Sure, yeah.